マジックナビゲーションラゴクリエーション世界立ち待ち揺れてタイニーレボリューションヒーローレボリューション一瞬の目に光が立ってずっとポケットの中にそっと隠し持ってた夢が
This world's podcast calls to me. It's Super Audio Robo Podcast Z. I'm Ark, that's Neph, and this is the show where we recommend you the finest mecha contents for your cultural and artistic development.
And would you believe it? 2 isekais in a row. And this is a modern isekai. Would you believe it?
Yeah, it's the only good one.
We're not isekai watchers in case it wasn't modern isekai watchers if it's not obvious.
Probably more accurate to say
Yeah.
modern isekai deriders.
Probably, yeah, that too. So what is this show we're talking about today, Ark?
Well, we are talking about Knights and Magic, a title that is very short and generally nondescript that you would somehow not think it fits into like the modern crop of isekais with their paragraph description that they pass off as a title. Least of all, it wouldn't even tell you that it's about giant robots, but it is.
It is.
It's one of the, oh man, like, just trying to find the best way to actually describe what it really feels like as far as, you know, but it's the depiction of robots. Whatever. I guess maybe the best way to go about it is to just go straight into the synopsis. That'll give everyone, I think, a better picture of what it's about. All right, then it goes like this. Kurata Tsubasa was an expert programmer for a software company and a huge mecha otaku when he was suddenly killed in a traffic accident on the way home from work. When he next woke up, he was reborn in a fantasy world as Ernesti et Chevalier and had something imprinted in his mind when he was only 3 years old. Robots! In this new world, giant robots powered by magic exist, piloted by knights who protect the peace in Fremavilla. These mecha, known as Silhouette Knights, would put Ernesti on the path to becoming a Night Runner himself, so he could fulfill his dream of not just piloting giant robots, but designing one he could call his own. And thus this boy genius' dedication and imagination would soon spark a technological revolution across both the kingdom and the rest of the continent. Yeah, this is a story where our hero is a mecha fanboy. He is us.
This is as you may have noticed, this is not about a sad boy living in the modern world. This is just a guy who was really into mechas.
It's still kind of wild to me after all this time that it is like, that I even like this anime as much as I do. But it manages to work so well that it's like it transcends, I think, like the sort of modern isekai trappings that kind of surrounded. I mean, for fuck's sake, even like that first sentence of the synopsis is like, Truck-kun claimed another victim. Where have we seen this before?
I can't believe he's been reincarnated as a younger and cuter in a cuter form.
Yeah, he's not a loser. In fact, he's just really hyperfixated on his one hobby.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it's even shown that when he was still in the real world, he was still someone everybody depended on. Like for the brief moment we get to see of him, anyways.
So I guess we'll get into our relatively brief prehistory for Knights and Magic, describing kind of like what, I guess more specifically, like what led up to, you know, eventually getting the anime, which is like the main source of discussion for today's episode, because it did not start out as an anime.
Yeah.
But at least for like, I guess like the initial context, like, yes, Knights and Magic is an isekai real robot anime produced by Studio 8-Bit in 2017, but it was not an anime original property. Its origins existed several years prior in a different medium, specifically that of a web novel in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It was started by Hisago Amazake, which between like that name and the fact I've never seen like pictures of the guy, I'm assuming that this was like, with its origins as a web novel, maybe it's just a case of just being like a internet username or something. I'm not entirely sure. Same with the illustrator, Kurogin. Like that's just all like he's known as. So yeah, basically Hisago wrote the chapters. Kurogin provided illustrations, you know, for like, you know, cover artwork and such. It would take until 2013 that it would eventually get published as a light novel. And to date, like looking this up, fairly recently, because I guess I had not realized until this year, I guess, like, the scope of how far the original novel series went, is that it has gone on for like 218 chapters across 11 volumes, with a lot of those later chapters actually being from like the past few years. So it's been a surprisingly ongoing thing. Maybe recently finished, I'm not entirely sure. It is extremely difficult to find like any like concrete synopses of like what happens in the later volumes, presumably because most people don't know they exist.
Yeah, I didn't know this was a thing until like a Super Robot Wars, actually.
Yeah, Super Robot Wars 30 was definitely something of a push. It's definitely the thing that got me to notice, oh wait, this is a thing that exists.
Yeah, and like we make fun of long titles, and believe me, I'm gonna hate on long titles for most of my days, but I do know the reason they do that is to catch people's attention in this saturated market, like to tell them, yeah, this is just what our novel's about, so come on, read me, please. So I can kind of understand why a novel called Knights and Magic wouldn't catch many people's attention.
It wouldn't catch many people's attention that are explicitly looking to drown themselves in like this tripe, but also, like the other thing I mentioned before, it's not the kind of title that grabs the attention of people that like would think that it's about giant robots, unless I guess you looked at like the front cover of the novel itself and saw the obvious giant robots.
Yeah, then
while these aren't works that came out before Knights and Magic, I believe like Knights and Magic, like the web novel series was like Hisago's actual first work, but he has worked on other things since then, like various like manga, and I think he even has like a new light novel that isn't an isekai, but I know is a fantasy setting with giant robots. So guy clearly has a type.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have like the light novel itself, web novel, light novel, like both simultaneously already established. The fact that it was as early as 2010, like also kind of further solidifies how much it is like feels so different from like the crop of like other isekai trash that came out at the time that like the anime and manga did. I'm going to say, I guess like it was before. It really was before like that machine like just went into complete overdrive on like pumping out all of that type of genre trash. But it would take until not until the anime, but like in 2016, a manga would be like the next thing made. That'd be the first proper adaptation done by Takuchi Kato, and then like the year after that, in 2017, we would get the anime itself, running for 13 episodes from July 2nd to September 24th. Part of the summer anime season, and it's funny, we were talking about we mentioned briefly about like the us like noticing that this anime existed thanks to its inclusion in Super Robot Wars. But even before that, I guess like records show that when the anime was finally produced, that was like, I guess, the other boosted popularity it ended up getting, like compared to even like the manga beforehand. Well, I guess even then that's also because like the manga itself it's a case where it covers like the same events as the anime, but with how mangaka schedules tend to be compared to the production of an anime, as you might imagine, it went on for several years way after the anime itself had concluded. Even to the point where it was like this is why like the light novel like info that I dug up surprised me, because I not only watched the anime but I read the manga for comparison. And because they covered and they start and end at like the exact same major points, I was like, oh, I guess this was I guess that explains everything. Maybe the light novel just covered all this. No, this only covered 50% of what like the light novel entails somehow.
And I don't. Okay, and I'm not sure if the light novels are translated to English. Maybe somebody did the work.
I believe it was like a couple years ago it was announced that some company was actually like officially translating and bringing over the novels, but they're like, they're like basically like a few volumes behind of like where the latest one is. So like they're not all over here yet. I think they might have gone up to like volume 8 at least, I think. there's but again, it's just really hard to know, I guess, like to what extent like the later novels, like what their events are after the anime. All I know is that after this, I'm like, man, now I think I'm starting to understand why some people I've seen have been like, I wish this show got a second season. Because I was like, they'd have to make up shit, right? This was all there is.
No. There is, in fact, more they could adapt if this got a second season.
Well, I mean, even then, I guess without that, we still got, like, as we continue to say and, like, beat this dead horse into the ground, we still got the one good modern isekai. It is wrapped around, like, the basic trappings that you expect for, like, the opening premise, yet it is not treating this as, like, a bad joke.
Yeah, it's a different kind of power fantasy. It's a power fantasy we're more into this time. I was going to say this is not a power fantasy, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
It's not the same Drek that we see in modern isekai.
Yeah, definitely. That's the prehistory. Like we said, kind of one of the shorter ones. They're like, there's not really any info out there as far as like, like what sort of confluence of ideas kind of led into this. All that we could really give was just the kind of like the slow trek, I guess, over the course of a decade plus of this thing that started as a web novel to slowly but surely getting more recognition, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The anime kind of helped it to a degree. Super Robot Wars also gave it another push, which makes sense because like that is a franchise that like is definitely like the best opportunity to get a giant robot series of any kind, like extra recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So with that out of the way, we could definitely get into the primary mecha, which this isekai is really, really fond of showing you every last little detail of.
It sure does. So let's get into them.
All right, our primary mecha, the Silhouette Knights. Bipedal robots that are controlled by knights. It is basically like, rather than a typical fantasy setting where the knights themselves are fighting on foot, they are like fighting inside like these like gigantic like suits of armor that are piloted like a robot, but obviously all the apparatuses, the technology, everything has like a very distinct magic flavor to it.
Yeah.
This is a world where there is like, the concept of ether that is like, like magic particles permeating throughout the atmosphere, and that is harnessed into these robots to create what is mana, and mana is the fuel source, all kinds of stuff. It's like if there is one clear reason as to like why this manages to be like a very good isekai in this modern context of ours, is because of just the incredible level of thought and consideration put into all the mechanisms of like how these robots are able to function and why they are important.
And believe me, you're going to get a lot about the development of these robots, or some of these robots.
Yeah, we do at least have to start by mentioning, I guess, like our default Silhouette Knight. So the one that has been basically the de facto standard in this world for like the past few centuries prior to our main character being born, and that is the Kaldatoa. Like those are the basic form of like the Silhouette Knights that everyone recognizes. Like they carry like very standard armaments as well. Like some might be equipped with a sword and shield, others might be equipped with magic rods, and starting out, that's basically the only two options, I guess, depending on it. Like they only have two arms after all, and this is a fantasy setting, so the ideas of like rocket launchers aren't going to exist.
Yeah,
at least not yet.
Not yet. Well, unless Ernie has anything to say about it. Yeah, because while the Kaldatoa themselves have been like pretty standard and basically been at the forefront of what has been a sort of, I guess, stagnation as far as technology, like everyone is like, man, this robot design's already perfect. It's not like we don't need to, do anything more with it. We just got to keep training more and more people to pilot these things. That is, of course, until our main character comes around and is like, through like various circumstances, ends up getting the opportunity to start designing his own Silhouette Knights, that he creates like the first major evolution from the Kaldatoa, and that is the Telestale. On the outset, doesn't look that much different. Still a bipedal robot at the end of the day. Yeah.
Except for the part where it has back-mounted arms that are designed to hold auxiliary weapons, which means that you could have a robot that has a sword and shield in the front and back-mounted, like, magic rods acting as turrets.
Can I just say how much of a galaxy brain idea this is? Wait, what if the robot had the sword and a magic rod at the same time? And 2 arms on its back.
It's crazy, too, because it's like any other Real Robots series. It's like, it's not hard to, like, think about the idea of, like, back-mounted hard points on a robot for additional weapons. That makes sense. That exists. It's like you could just attach, like, a missile launcher or something to there. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it takes extra thought to make it fit in this sort of fantasy setting that someone in this world would come to a similar conclusion, but through a completely different method, like... What if, like, our back-mounted weapons were just held by extra arms?
Yeah. And it fits. It still fits in the world. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. You can see how they came up with that idea.
In addition to other, like, revolutionary advances, such as, basically changing the very way that, like, I guess, like, the internal frame of the Silhouette Knight is designed, both in terms of structure and how it harnesses, like, the ether in the surrounding atmosphere to, like, power, like, its, mana fuel and such. Because Silhouette Knights, they also have, like, this thing where it's, like, I believe it's, like crystal tissue or something to that effect, where it is basically kind of like the internal frame, almost like the muscles of the robot itself. It's what like supports it and kind of holds it together. But obviously, it has like a weight capacity to it naturally if it's trying to like, channel like so much power that it needs to like carry something heavy or move other large objects and such like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the Telestale also revolutionizes it, where it's like, what if we just apply the same method behind like, braiding strands to create like an extremely durable piece of rope and just create like a strand type crystal tissue so that our Silhouette Knights have even stronger muscles.
Why not just do that? Sure.
Yeah. And it is through these advancements that it's like there's a whole lot of other Silhouette Knights in this anime that we could describe by name, but it's like a lot faster to just say that like a lot of like the really unique and interesting ones are very clearly derived from the Telestale as like the starting blueprint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like it is from there that it uses all like the new technologies developed with like the back mounted arms, the strand crystal type tissue, all this stuff that eventually gets incorporated into like newer and more powerful Silhouette Knight designs. But there are at least like a few more that we can mention that are like quite a bit different. One of them, in fact, it doesn't even classify as a Silhouette Knight itself. It's a Silhouette gear. So it's like, our main characters decided it's like robots aren't enough. We also need to make power armor.
Yeah, just adding more on top of it. Why not?
And it's a simple logical reason why it ends up being made is because like being a Knights runner, the expectation is that you are a fully grown adult because that's the only way all of your limbs are able to reach like all the different apparatuses in the cockpit.
Yeah.
Like the pedals, the control, I guess pistons or hydraulic things. I don't know. They're kind of weird. They're not like traditional like flight sticks or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But with the Silhouette gear, at least the idea is that, it's a smaller frame and it's enough that like even like a teenager would be able to like, pilot it just fine and get used firsthand to like, I guess like the speed and sensation of using your body to control like like a frame that is much bigger than you. And so like with a Silhouette gear, it's not going to be as powerful as like a regular Silhouette Knight, but it's got mobility on its side. It's got like special like tether grappling hooks that it could use to basically like like scale walls and other obstacles, or even like set traps to like kind of like trip over larger robots if it wants.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got like our standard like Silhouette Knight designs. We've got our power armor variants with the Silhouette gears. There are at the very least, as we wrap this up, two hyper specific, I will say, Silhouette Knight designs that I think deserve special mention.
Mm-hmm.
The first of them is the Gold Leo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big, golden, like, tough motherfucking robot fit for a king. It also technically has like a sibling design called the Jilba Tiger, which is clearly supposed to be Silver Tiger when you think about it, but it's like whatever. It's just a silver version. The Gold Leo is just like it is the big heavyweight of like Silhouette Knight with like its most standout ability of anything being like shoulder, chest mounted like energy cannons that is able to fire when it like assumes a position, because it has that, like, this is the genius part, it has what looks like a cape, but the thing with the cape looking like designs on the back is that they're more like almost like tripod spikes in a way. Like it is designed to basically like drive itself into the ground to act as additional support, so that like the blast and impact of firing these big fuck off laser cannons isn't going to like knock it over or anything. Like that's the best part about it.
Yeah, like when we said there's a lot of thought that goes into these robots, we mean it. They're like, this is made by people. This is clearly like written by a person who has love for giant robots and has thought very deeply about the mechanics of how does this work? How would this attack work? How would this robot do this specific task or move? It's great. I love it because of that.
But our last primary mecha, one that I felt definitely needed to get out here, but only because our spoiler discussion, when we get to it, unfortunately is prior to this one's introduction.
Yeah.
The Ikaruga. Not that other Ikaruga that you might be thinking of.
No, we're talking about that's just the name of the mech. That's just the name of the robot. Don't worry.
Yes, this deep blue robot with gold trims, and not content with just 2 extra arms on the back, it's got fucking 4.
Yeah, of course it does.
It's got 2 ether reactors, which are like basically like the main like energy source that all Silhouette Knights have. One was apparently not enough because like with all the crazy shit this one is able to do, primarily the ability to fly, that takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of mana. So, and it's important to note that with the Ikaruga and like this crazy ass design, least of all the fact that it is the only like Silhouette Knight in this entire show that has a Japanese name of all things. Don't ask like how this kid possibly came up with it. We already know the answer as the audience.
Yep.
But this is our main character, Ernesti Chevalier. Like this is Ernie's like dream mecha that he's basically for 2/3 of the series is building up to. He's not content with just getting to pilot one. He wants to make the robot of his dreams, and by God does he do it in a way that is so utterly terrifying.
Yeah, and you won't see this robot for a bit. In fact, not until near the end of the series. But boy, is it worth the wait.
Yeah, pretty much it gets all the attention when you're in the final arc of the anime itself, but I mean it's worth it. You at least get to see like the teases and hints of it, like if you watch like the OP and like an ending for the show, you know, beginning and end of each episodes. Yeah, that's a lot of that's the primary mecha that I could spare the time to talk about. Any additional ones, they'll obviously get mentioned in our spoiler discussion when we get to it, because there's still always a lot more.
Yeah, there's
but we could at least get into our primary characters, which I've at least narrowed down to even though it's like, I don't know, fucking 8 characters, there's a whole lot more even compared to this.
Yeah.
But these characters all have something important in common, and that they are all part of like the same, like, you know, as the story develops, they all become part of the same Knights Order, like under the lead of our main character, where the sole, like, the primary purpose is to like spearhead the development and like advancement of new Silhouette Knights. Because our main character, Ernesti Chevalier, otherwise known as Ernie, or L, if Eru, I guess, like if you're going just off like the literal Japanese text, is all in on this because robots are his hobby.
Yeah. He loves,
That's it.
That's it. He loves robots. He loves robots so much.
A reasoning that is like so direct and so simple and so pure that it gets even someone like the king to be like, "Ha, I like you, kid."
You have a one-track mind, but I'm into it.
Because Ernie is a robot fanatic. He basically is the one that like just like, because of like the subconscious like memories still left in him from his previous life as Kurata, like he's basically the one that like in the history of like the people in this fantasy world coins the term robot, because that is what he says when he first saw a Silhouette Knight in action when he was only a toddler. That was still left somewhere deep in his soul after reincarnating. Mm-hmm. It is the sort of thing where it's like, I don't know, just as like a weird aside, I get like kind of part of the reasoning and the entertainment value that comes from it technically being like a reincarnation isekai, but with how well developed Ernie is as its own character, I feel like there's like a modified version of the story you can make where the whole reincarnation element isn't actually like important at all, and not much would really change at all, because like Ernie comes off as a very believable example of like just a very pure child with like a dedicated and like really focused mind and imagination that fits into the idea that, you know, like his ideas don't necessarily need to come from the fact that he like was a mecha otaku in a previous life. It could just very easily be the sort of thing where like what we've had in history, where we've had people just come around that happen to be super smart, just naturally more gifted in that area than everyone else. And those are the people that ended up bringing about like new like revolution in all kinds of different fields.
Yeah.
Ernie absolutely like falls into that category, and he is basically like a middle schooler in terms of age for most of the story. Mm-hmm. He is such a pure child. What a sweet boy that wants to make his giant death robots.
Oh, he's just like us. He's just obsessed with his giant robot toys, and he wants to build his own robots.
He even has his own code of aesthetics in regards to robots and what they should or shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's how you know he's a real one.
Yeah. Yeah, just what a great, silly, like cute white-haired boy who, and like and also thankfully, because of his like very dedicated obsession with his hobby, doesn't really get bogged down in the realm of, you know, like harems or other sexual temptation.
Yeah.
It's actually really refreshing, that aspect. Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop one of our other characters from still treating him like her personal hug pillow, and that is Altrude Alter, or otherwise known as Adi. Although I guess I'll lump in like the other character with them because they're siblings. Like I mentioned Adi, but then there is her brother Arkid, otherwise known as Kid. Like they're two siblings, technically bastard children because of the fact that I think it was like it was their mother or father that was not actually of royal blood, but the other person was actually a noble, and so that's kind of a thing with like their background. But they became good friends with Ernie at a very young age when they just saw like Ernie practicing like refining his magic usage and abilities, like basically just running atop the roof, running on rooftops in the early morning that they see him for the first time, and are like, huh, weird kid, but become really good friends, least of all because Adi just thinks he is the most adorable person ever. Like, I think even mistaking him as a girl first.
Yeah, she is going to dote on him a lot, like during the show.
Kid, not so much, because he is basically the straight man of the trio, and he's got Koji Kabuto hair.
Which feels very deliberate.
Yeah, there's like, for a fantasy setting, like if you know your robots, like robot anime and tropes and whatever, like very well, you can see the bits and pieces around where it's like, oh yeah, you sprinkled a little bit of Gundam in that area, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you did with like your evil empire's Natsuzabi family. I know what's going on. But Adi and Kid, you know, like while like being like close friends of Ernie, like they become like one of the first in like the Knight's Order that Ernie gets like appointed to, like and also helping a lot with like all of his crazy new designs and inventions. Like they like starting out is like they do not get the early opportunity that Ernie does to pilot a Silhouette Knight themselves, which is where like you actually see them fairly early on like making more use of the Silhouette gears, if anything, because like they're all the same age. They're still children technically. They're not at the right age and have not hit their growth spurts entirely that they're able to sit in a traditional cockpit yet.
Yeah.
But again, this is Ernie we're talking about. He's inventing such crazy things. Of course, he's eventually going to make more Silhouette Knights that even like his friends that are like of like a bit more like sub-average height are still able to pilot just fine. Like they're great. Least of all because Kid also has like a really good character development of his own, which is like part of like the final story arc. Something where it actually helps him push out beyond just being like, you know, like the straight man of like the trio, and actually kind of getting like, you know what I'm talking about. It's like with the princess.
Yeah, I do.
They're all good friends, even knowing full well that Ernie's like extremely otaku-like fixation on his hobby is like sometimes alienating. Like they have their moments where it is like, oh yeah, we like Ernie. He's a great friend. Oh no, he's going on another one of his tangents. Yeah. Oh boy, we're gonna be here all day. We've all been there. We've had moments where we felt super self-conscious when we're putting people like in that sort of position.
Yeah.
Because of our bullshit.
We sure do. So it's understandable.
Other important people that help out in Ernie's quest to keep developing new and amazing Silhouette Knights is David Hepkin. There's like another character like this, Baston, I believe, but I mostly want to talk about David because he is basically the leader of the dwarves in this Knight's Order that are they are the mechanics. They are the pit crew. Like pretty much every major Real Robot anime I feel like has to have something like this, especially when I think about like in comparison to something like, you know, how in Pat Labor, you know, like the SV2's like mechanics crew are like a bunch of misfits that are all rallied together by like the one really tough, angry person that is able to whip them all into shape and get shit done. David is the leader of that group. He fits it to a T and is like basically the one that Ernie is working with a lot in terms of, you know, not just sharing the ideas, but seeing that like the implementation is able to work out, and that makes sense. You know, he's not a Knight Runner. Obviously, with him being a dwarf, that makes him physically like unqualified to be so.
Yeah, but it's also a fun way to take a fantasy archetype of, you know, dwarves. They're like they like messing around with they're kind of like mini mechanics. They love crafting and shit. So let's just make them into robot mechanics.
And they do it without, you know, leaning into like the most obvious stereotypical depiction of what a dwarf looks like, because as you'll find out, no thick luxurious facial hair.
Nope, none here.
Yeah, they just look like squat humanoids.
Yeah,
that's it. And like it's oddly refreshing, really. At least of all because, you know, there's like no real sense of like divide. You know, like this is not an anime that is looking to fit in a subplot regarding fantasy racism.
No,
like everything in Primavilla is pretty like stable as far as like what these different races are involved in. You know, like the humans are mainly like the Night Runners that pilot the Silhouette Knights. Like the dwarves are like the mechanics. They are like the really reliable and proud mechanical hard labor. And that's obviously also not getting into the fact that there's a third race, which is they're just elves, and they're the ones that they're part of like a secluded society that occasionally sends out ambassadors, mainly for the purpose of like coordinating with like the with providing the ether reactors, because creating an ether reactor is something that only the elves can do. Yeah, that's what they're called. They don't call them elves; they're elves. It sounds close enough.
Oh, sure, whatever you say, guys.
I mean, for fuck's sake, they even live for centuries, you know? Like, it's hitting all the fucking elf tropes right there.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of, like, fantasy races, but it's very straightforward, and, like, yeah, you're not going to get, like, any tension between the races or anything like that. There's tension, but it's like between them and like a bunch of demon beasts and maybe also another country. But
yeah, like this anime understands what the real focus is.
yeah, it's on building robots, literally,
and using robots in cool ways.
Yes.
But at least the rest of our primary characters are like are for real night runners. Like we have like much like how Ernie, Adi, and Kid are like their own trio, like the young up and coming generation. We have like the other trio that are basically like the young adults, like, proper newly graduated night runners themselves. Like Edgar, Blanche, Dietrich Nitz, and Helvi Oberry. At least one that I want to start with to kind of give a highlight to is Dietrich Nitz himself. Out of the three, he is definitely the one that for the entire run of this anime, you like when you are first introduced to him, you are surprised afterwards to realize, oh wow, he continues to improve and be like an important character.
Yeah,
because we are talking about a proud, like, boisterous blonde guy with his own like custom paint job Caldotoa called the Guerre. He's a sword fighter, very proud of it, until he's no longer proud because he comes face to face with a real battle that causes actual death.
Yeah, he is someone who actually goes through a lot of development throughout this show, actually. Going from understandably running away and getting a little traumatized, but learning how to like kind of channel his trauma, how to like still fight on,
He overcomes his initial cowardice.
He does. He overcomes it. Exactly.
Yeah, which is sort of thing where it's like, I definitely like it a lot. He's like, least of all just because I feel like it makes so much sense why this story like kind of puts that emphasis on him, considering you look at Dietrich's design as a character and see what kind of robot he's piloting, and the fact that it's red.
It's red.
It's like we have our own personal Char, except he is not going to try and commit like an act of terrorism.
He doesn't even wear a mask. What kind of Char are you? Should have given him a mask.
I guess he's more of a Quattro in this case.
Yeah. I guess so.
But even then, he needs the shades. What the hell? Yeah, I guess maybe this Char comparison had more holes in it than I thought.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's like, oh well. Like the other two characters like in this trio are obviously a lot more level-headed, but have like different development of their own. Like Edgar is basically kind of seen as like the main one of this particular trio. Pilots like his own custom silhouette night called the Earl Cumber, which I think like the part that kind of makes him stand out in the long term is that you look at what we described with Dietrich, like his particular silhouette night and fighting style, and you realize that Edgar fights in a way that is like much more built around defense. And when you see the upgrades to like the Guerre and the Earl Cumber, like respectively later on, like what kind of like new versions that Ernie makes for them using the Telestale as a base, you realize that Dietrich's Guerre goes even more like all in on offense, while Edgar becomes like a shield, like defensive powerhouse.
Yeah, it's like they become the tank and DPS. That's kind of like something like that.
Yeah. Helvi, meanwhile, is like kind of like the odd one in this case because I'll admit, like, I forget like what actual name like her initial silhouette night actually had, but that's mostly because like she ends up taking a much different role in that like she becomes one of like the priority pilots in terms of like getting like first use of like any new experimental units that that Ernie has come up with. Least of all because one of the units that like she was assigned to and transporting got stolen by a bunch of bandits, and she's felt like especially torn up about the fact that happened. But I mean, whatever, it's okay after that, because after that initial like encounter with thieves, Ernie also came up with the other genius idea in this fantasy setting of the concept of the ignition key.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it all ultimately works out, and like considering like those bandits also factor into like the final story arc when there's like a proper war going on, is that Helvi also gets like her like full like character development by the end, where like she gets like the closure on like that initial point of shame even though like it's really more of a self-inflicted shame. No one else really blames her for it, but she gets the closure that she's looking for, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I guess technically not part of the Knight's Order, which I forgot to mention the name of, is the Order of the Silver Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the name that it goes by. Yeah. Like everyone is part of this order except for this last one. He's more of an acquaintance and like ends up fighting with them a lot more like during like the end. Like the end game of the series, and that is Emery's from Avilia. Yeah, we've got like the crown prince of this kingdom, who is a true-blooded fucking musclehead.
He is Himbo Supreme. That's what he is.
Himbo Supreme that loves to just go all in on the lion imagery.
Yes. And
although to be fair, his dad and his granddad, mostly his granddad, also go way in on the lion imagery.
Yeah, he just loves it because it looks cool and it's powerful. And he loves being powerful.
Yeah.
It's looking powerful.
I love how much that this show is able to get away with a design for Emery's that is like the like most standard like tough guy macho himbo fantasy like character ever in an anime. Like there's not much about I can think of that feels like super distinct. Like anyone could have come up with this.
Yeah.
But the fact that he is in this type of setting and pilots like and ends up being the pilot of the Gold Leo itself, it's like, you know, you still remember him somehow.
Yeah, pretty much.
And there's so many other like
there's
great characters as well. But like this was just the most that we could like spare for them. We would be here all day trying to like extend things further to like, you know, like the rest of the royal family, other characters, least of all ones that take place in like the you know like in the latter third of the series. There's at least one I'll bring up when we get to spoilers, just because it's like I have a theory, I have a headcanon that I want to run by you and see if you actually agree with me on this.
Oh boy,
but until then, I guess the obvious is, why do we recommend Knights and Magic?
Yeah, why do we do that?
Well, for the most obvious one is that this is the one good modern isekai. Saying that again for posterity. You know, like we really do wish that like just the modern isekai as it is could just be erased, and we could like simply make room for like other genres to be back more like in the spotlight. But it's like we're fine with Knights and Magic being the exception. You know, like despite like the initial trappings, you know, the main character being someone that gets killed and like reincarnates into another world, all this sort of stuff. Like, I guess just because of the fact that it was conceived before the audience obsession with isekais went completely over the top, that like the world it creates, the characters, their motivations, everything feels like it works so well that even if the isekai parts did not exist, you would not feel like anything was missing from it.
Yeah, it still feel like a good fantasy like tale, a fantasy book or anime.
And obviously like the robots are like the big part of it, of the show's appeal. There's a lot of great fights in it. You know, I mean, it's part of the era where, you know, more and more studios just went straight to CG, but as you'll find when you watch like these episodes, it's like, man, for a 13 episode series, it's like I have to wonder like what the budget that Studio 8-Bit had for this thing was, because I feel like it had to have been big enough that it's like, because of the short episode count, they were able to get away with like a lot more dynamic like CG robot fight scenes than I think most any others would have had like during this decade. At least it's like as close to comparable to like later Macross anime, like Frontier or Delta, especially Delta. But it's not just the fights. It's not just watching cool robots fight that is the appeal. The appeal is the trial and error process of these characters, like improving on a technological design, like these giant robots, and creating something revolutionary with it. The episodes. There are episodes where they are dedicated to fights and they are fun to watch, but you get to see that it's also just as fun to have an episode where characters are in a workshop, like sharing blueprints, like bouncing ideas around, of being like, okay, so how do we solve this problem of like energy drain and like like physical weight strain like on this robot when we try to, add more weapons on top of this. How do we get around this conundrum? And just seeing, how they go about it before finally having the finished product and taking it for a test run, it is super satisfying. You just don't get that particular like perspective on robots quite often enough in any other anime.
Yeah.
Like if a new robot's being built, it just gets consolidated into like a very short montage of sorts where they're not really going into any further detail. They're just showing like snapshots of like, oh, this is what's happening. Now it's finished. Now it's the new unit for the main character. That's it. We're not gonna explain anymore.
Yeah, like in almost any other show, like Ernie would have gotten the Ikaruga in like episode 3, but this show is shows you all the steps they go to creating that moment and all the like different tests and things they have to go through. And it really gives it a very unique vibe that you don't see in a lot of other mecha shows in general, I feel.
I feel like the best opportunity you would get to have something like this in another show would be like if you were to do something similar to like have you ever heard of the game Steambot Chronicles?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
It's a fantastic game where like its use of robots is portraying it in like a really engaging, mundane sort of way.
Yeah.
Like they're not being used as military weapons. It's like they're treated as like an analog to the car.
Yeah.
And it's like having that kind of mundane setting would probably be like the next best opportunity to have what Knights and Magic does, where it's able to dedicate time to the R&D process of like how one of these gets made and like how they solve like a particular problem in order to create something new.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I would love to see an anime like that.
Yeah, that'd be
so good.
I'm shocked nobody made a show like that already. But yeah, that would be great.
I mean, most we got for anything that feels mundane with robots is pat labor, but even then, like there's none of the like they're also not focusing on the R&D process as much, you know, because it's a police procedural.
It's got the mundane vibes, but we don't see like that aspect like you mentioned. I feel like that would be something that many people would be really into. As we would be into it.
100%. Yeah, and if Ernie has to be treated as a stand-in for a certain type of viewer, it's obviously the mecha fanatic, and I can't stress enough just kind of like what makes like Ernie like such an appealing part of the show as well. In addition to all the stuff with the robots and like how realized the fantasy setting is because for an isekai protagonist, it would have been so easy to make something like so like hacky by just making it be like, oh, it's his original persona as is now suddenly awoken in the new world, or kind of like the other thing that we often like see and like deride, where it's like, oh, they were a loser in their previous life, but now they're like, it's like now they got like a new chance to just, like get away with like their own like selfish desires scot-free in a way that just feels very like insincere, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
Ernie, meanwhile, is very sincere because it is like the desires and like interests of Kurata basically being imprinted subconsciously on Ernie from like when he was a very small child, and is still like, even to the end of the anime itself, still legally a child.
Yeah.
And that just makes like everything about what he does feel so much more pure and like sincere. Well, mostly. There are some things he says that he gets into that are a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
This at least leads into something I do want to bring up, which is, because I have also read the manga in addition to the anime, is that there are subtle differences regarding like Ernie's characterization across these adaptations. And the anime, I guess, is one thing where it kind of, in regards to the characterization, I like what the anime does more compared to what I've seen of like the previous adaptations or even the source material. But it's all also offset by the other thing, which is this is a short one-season anime.
Yeah.
But I at least like that the anime puts the least amount of emphasis on reminding you of the fact that Ernie remembers his previous life. Because in the manga, and especially in what text I've read of the light novel, is that it's constantly reminding you of, Kurata, he was a programmer, and like like Ernie's path to learning magic is that he's basically like calling back on, you know, like these sort of thought processes he had back as a programmer and realizing that creating spells is like programming, that sort of thing. Anime completely glosses over that because that's really not as important, and you don't need that emphasized nearly as much in this story where like Ernie is supposed to be his own character.
Yeah, I don't feel like
it's just subconsciously informed by a previous character. I mean, you get stuff like a dream sequence where Ernie sees like a bunch of like packages of like unbuilt gunpla and they're disappearing one by one, and he starts having a nightmare about it. But at least works as like a vague premonition in this case, where it's like he doesn't know that's what those are, but he at least gets the idea that it's like he cannot let his dream slip through his fingers.
Yeah, I'm glad they glossed over that in the anime because it feels like it's unnecessary. It's like you don't need to do that. And even then, it's like it's already like, kind of hinted at that he would know because of his previous life. You don't need to drive it into your audience's like head or something like that.
The most you need to see of it in explicit detail is like the opening few minutes of episode 1 when you see him at his job going home, buying a plastic model kit and being all like, oh yeah, I'm gonna build this gunpla while I also have this 70s anime playing in the background.
Yeah.
Life is great. Oh, what's that truck doing?
Yeah, that's basically.
I don't even think the manga like even dwells on like that much amount of detail regarding like what happened in the moments leading up to his death, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of like gives you brief snapshots of like the traffic accident, and then bam, you're suddenly in Fremavilla. We don't care about that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's really like kind of like the gist of it. Like I really do like I do think one of the things that the anime does well is like just the way that it puts more emphasis on Ernie as his own character, and like even if his like motivations are clearly stemming from like a sense of morality that is not shared by anyone else because of the fact that he is a mecha otaku, it's like there's still more of like a childlike purity to it that I think is to the story's benefit. I just wish it could have been longer, like if it had that second season. But then again, I don't think the light novel was like, I think I would have to assume when the anime was made that like the only events that they had to pull from were like basically the first half of the light novel, you know? Like because it continued on even into this decade.
Yeah, I would have to like probably assume that they just didn't have much material to work with, or they were waiting for more first. Like, if it's maybe now's the time to make a new Knights and Magic, maybe not, or I'd want more. I would love to see more. Actually.
Yeah, there's at least some details, like very like scattered things that I've heard that happens in the later volumes where it's like, yeah, I'd like to see that. I mean, whatever. I guess let's just try and see if we can get the next Super Robot Wars game now that Y is out to like get Knights and Magic back in for another round, see if that gets people's interest again, and then see if someone is going to spend the money on like greenlighting a second season. Who knows? But until then, because of this being a much more modern anime compared to a lot of the shows that we talk about on this podcast, both the anime and the manga, actually, I believe, are easily available on Crunchyroll for if you want your official options. The light novel, as mentioned as well earlier, has been picked up for English release since 2023. Final few volumes have yet to be released, though, so it's like you're not gonna get up to like the end of like the full original story. Assuming it's the end, I'm not sure. I think it is. I think 11 volumes might have been like when it ended, because I know that he's done that. There is like another like. Again, like I mentioned, like the other light novel that Hisago is also working on that is not an isekai but fantasy setting and has giant robots. Who knows? Who knows? Oh, like if this curiosity of mine is what's going to get me to actually just like buck up and read a light novel of all things, then so be it.
Yeah, maybe this will do it. Maybe let's get it. But who knows? Stranger things have happened.
I guess now, with that out of the way, we could get into our second half and start talking about spoilers.
Let's spoiler it up.
Yep. If you liked what you heard about us talking about Knights and Magic, least of all because we got to talk about like a isekai from the past 10 years that we don't think is trash, then yeah, watch it. Like, stop this podcast episode and go check it out. It's 13 episodes. If you got a day with like nothing else to do, you could get it done in that afternoon. It works. But otherwise, stick around and we'll see you on the other side as we talk about our highlight episodes for this anime.
Yep, we'll see you then.
All right, time to talk about Ernie's first big battle piloting a Silhouette Knight.
Yeah, we're talking about the second episode of this show.
Yeah, because the first episode does the most glossing over of events than most other anime I could think of, because a lot of the stuff in Ernie's childhood is just like in fast forward, just so that they could get to this moment.
Yeah, they were like, no, we can speed through this. It's fine. We don't need to get too much into it.
Yeah. Like, if you really want to see the part of the story where Ernie stands up for a kid who's getting bullied by, like, some, like, rich kid, basically rubbing in his face that he's a bastard child, like, you could just read the manga for that if you want. It's literally in there. Yeah. It's fine. But for now, like, with this anime, we just want to get straight into episode 2, Hero and Beast, in which Ernie gets involved in a major crisis as a behemoth, like a gigantic class demon beast is just charging forward on a rampage, and like no one seems to be able to stop it, as evident by the opening battle going super poorly, as like a fort on the outskirts just gets plowed through. Yeah, and this is all basically happening during like I guess you could say a field trip, because this is still at the point where Ernie and his friends are in school, and like Adi and Kid's like half sister is like the student council president. That's kind of like, basically like being responsible as she can, looking after everyone, and like Ernie manages to actually like help out. I guess technically the end of last episode, but also bleeding into this one, where a bunch of smaller demon beasts were like, charging towards the group of students, seemingly to attack, but really it was more like they were running away from something worse, because Ernie is very perceptive in this regard. But especially with all the help that he provides to make sure that, no one got hurt in the chaos. This kind of gets back into something we talked about with our characters. This story walks a fine line with like Ernie being like desirable to certain girls, because it is more from the perspective of he is such a gosh darn adorable boy. Yeah, no, like this is like no sexual energy from it whatsoever. Adi and like her half sister just want to keep hugging him. Yeah, there's no harem in this show. They just think he's adorable and they want to hug him. That's it. And I guess based on what I know from like I guess the later light volume novels is that by volume 9, Adi and Ernie actually do get married. So yeah, I guess she wins out in the end, that Ernie's able to find something in addition to robots that he loves just as much. I didn't think it was possible for him to find something that's not robots. Yeah, I guess being used as a hug pillow every night like eventually rubbed off on it. It's like, yeah, this is nice. I guess so. There's no ulterior motive behind it. No. He's not He's not like touch starved after this. I can tell you that for free. Sure isn't. So like as the students are making their way out, the behemoth is very close by, and we get to see Edgar, Helvey, and Dietrich go into action for real. Though more importantly, this is where we also get to see the start of Dietrich having a huge mental breakdown as some of the other Night Runners get fucking eviscerated. And D is not having a good time. D is, he's might be panicking a little. Just a little. Like, he's being very brash and cocksure 1 minute, but then as soon as he fucking, like, sees what has happened, like, it's like the mannerisms of his Silhouette Knight is completely matching his, like, his tone at the very moment, just turns around, arms flailing, runs for the fucking hills. And that gives Ernie an idea. Boy, does it. Yep. Cute and bright as this boy is, remember, Ernie cares about one thing. And he's not going to let this opportunity to pilot a Silhouette Knight pass him, even if he has to knock out D and take his square from him. Because at least he's able to come up to some level of justification of being like, oh, so you ran away? All right, cool. Now I don't feel bad about taking this from you.
the way he says it, like, just so matter of fact, like, "Oh, you ran away, huh?" It's just so funny. Like, not even caring that the guy is panicking or having a traumatic like event. He's like, "Oh, cool, an opportunity for me to pilot a robot, and I'll feel bad about it."
Yeah, just knocks him out with his gun magic wand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I can't believe that's the other fucking thing I forgot to mention in the character section as far as like how much of a genius Ernie is that, like, you know, people outside of Silhouette Knights can use magic and they naturally use wands. Ernie gets the bright idea of as far as like how to make his spells more potent by just fashioning his wand into a gun.
Yeah.
And he has two.
He has two guns.
Yeah, and this leads into, I guess, like one of the funniest moments of the episode, which isn't that much considering that, you know, this is an episode with pretty high stakes, all things considered. You know, like a fucking behemoth is like charging forward in the direction of the main capital. Horrible death and destruction could happen. And meanwhile, Ernie has to get over his first major hurdle now that he has a Silhouette Knight.
Yeah.
He can't reach the controls.
Yeah, he's
just
short.
Sticks his arms out, like wiggles his fingers, being like, "Oh, I can't grab it."
I can't. It's like he's too short.
Just the music cutting out right at that moment as well, like seals the comedy for it completely. It is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay because he gets the bright idea of like pulling apart like the piston joystick things from like their sockets, taking like the wiring, wrapping it around his like gun wand things, like, you know, his magic guns, and then proceeds to do like the next big brain thing that he can, rewiring like the magic circuits of the Silhouette Knight itself, so that as long as he has like his wands like connected to the machine itself and he's holding on to it, he is just able to control it with like no additional physical input.
Yeah.
He has reprogrammed the Silhouette Knight from scratch and is able to like control it with like such accuracy despite his short frame. Then you just see the Guer get up at that very moment and run forward and leap in a way that is like so triumphant. Like it is amazing.
It's a moment of just sheer joy for Ernie because he finally gets to do what he always wanted to do.
Any scene in this anime, when you get to see Ernie smile, it literally warms your fucking heart.
Yeah.
And as this is happening, you know, like the rest of the students, Addie and Kid included, are already like on the wagons, kind of like evacuating, and like they're wondering, wait, where did Ernie run off to? You think he's fine? And then they both clue in immediately that it's like, oh, you don't think he decided to take a Silhouette Knight for himself and fight, do you? Yeah, that sounds like him.
Yeah, they just know.
They don't even need to see him like run past or anything. It's like they just instinctually know that their favorite little otaku boy has gotten up to this shit.
They've been with Ernie long enough where it's like they know what kind of person he is.
Yeah, they don't need to see him charging forward or like laughing ecstatically like over the loudspeaker as he goes straight into battle, like leaping, ducking, and weaving all around the behemoth itself, getting a sword stuck in the monster's eye, and like you get to see the duality of the Kohai having the time of his life and the senpai that's freaking the fuck out. Because D wakes up at this moment and starts having another episode.
And Ernie's like, hey, could you please just calm down? I got this handled.
Yeah, it's like, I try to pay attention. Please stop yelling.
Please stop yelling.
But even like as the fight goes on, it's like impressively, you know, aside from like the Guer's sword like kind of getting broken and stuck in the behemoth's sides, like Ernie is doing a pretty good job like keeping it distracted, like just long enough for reinforcements from a nearby fort to arrive, coming in handy with another cool thing that I love that you can tell Hisago like thought a lot about as well, as far as like robot armaments in this kind of fantasy setting. Like, how do you do that while still making it feel medieval? And it's like, yeah, the the giant robot equivalent of a medieval battering ram, isn't like this separate vehicle thing that, people have to carry or like push forward. It's like, no, you don't need to do that because the robots are already big. They're just going to carry a giant portable pile bunker. And you can tell it's a pile bunker because of all the mechanisms on it, and you can tell instantly as soon as it drives that giant spike into one of the beast's legs.
God, I love that. It's just a giant pile bunker. I mean, it doesn't work, but it's cool.
It seems to work for a little bit until a bunch of the Silhouette Knights get trampled underfoot. And it's part of the whole thing where D sees the reinforcements and it's like, hell yeah, reinforcements, we got this! And then sees them get crushed, and we're like, oh no, we're fucked again! But more importantly is us getting to see how upset Ernie is at what he considers a violation of his code of aesthetics. This gets back to what I actually mentioned before the spoilers section, and how there's like slight differences in Ernie's characterization. Like on top of the fact that the anime glosses over as much of the acknowledgement of his previous life as often as they can. There's also a matter where it is like you see more signs in the manga and presumably the light novel as well that Ernie's priorities make him kind of fucked up as a person. Like, because in the manga he is way more furious and goes like off the rails like during this compared to whereas in the anime he just goes unforgivable. The only thing that's allowed to destroy a robot is another robot.
Yeah, it's like, Ernie, people are dying. Ernie, what you say? I know you're mad.
Yeah, it's like the difference is that between going like mad versus going like ape shit, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Like he really has like, again, like the more text focused adaptations of the story like take the time to kind of put more emphasis on the fact that his priorities are actually kind of problematic at times. The anime, there's still some of it here and there, but it's more willing to kind of play it up for the fact that like, oh, he's deep down, he's still just a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not a fully mature person despite his genius.
Yeah.
But even after this happens, the behemoth is still charging forward. Ernie needs to put together like one final gambit to try and like take this beast down. And funny enough, it actually involves Dee's cooperation of all things. He actually manages to get the guy to do something, even though he is still like crying his eyes out over like the terror of what he is seeing. Yeah. So basically, what he does is like, all right, Ernie, even though I fucked up your controls, I need you to like sit in the cockpit chair for me right now. I'm going to stand on top of the Guerre outside as I perform a massive version of the air bullet spell to like, shoot at it and help you like propel it backwards, because it's like this whole like kind of stunt they're trying to pull of luring in the behemoth to charge at it as Ernie and Dee both make the Silhouette Knight jump backwards, grab, and like as Ernie is also like using his magic to control like the upper half of the Guerre, grabs the fucking part of the sword that was jammed into the behemoth's eye, and then channels an electric magic spell to just fry the motherfucker from the inside. Like, sends an electric current all the way through its synapses that it just kills its brain instantly. Like, it is a really good, solid fucking finale that manages to keep the tension up right till the very end.
Yeah, it's just asking you, hey, how's he going to take down this giant beast? And then when you find out how, it's like, oh, it's something they've kind of been hinting at a little.
Yeah, they took advantage of a previous wound and just being like, oh, we just have to conduct magic through this because, like, as long as it's able to damage it on the inside, then that's what counts. So yeah, Ernie saved the day.
Yeah, he did it.
And D, I guess. It's funny though, like when like the Guerre is just like lying on the ground afterwards, and Edgar comes back and is like, "Man, D, I was wrong about you. You really pulled through to help us out back there." Until the cockpit opens and both D and Ernie fall out, and then everyone is just completely in disbelief. Is like, the fuck? Yeah, because Yeah, Adi and Kid, they were right on the money about it. Edgar's in disbelief, and more importantly, the royal court has decided to keep these events secret, as revealing that like this robot obsessed child was responsible for stopping the behemoth would have struck a blow to the rest of the Knights' morale, because of course.
Yeah, of course it would. It's a good thing Ernie's not getting into any trouble for this.
Nah, instead he manages to. He does get the king's attention, which helps put him further on the path of what he wants to do. This was only the start of his grand plans. Piloting the Silhouette Knight wasn't enough. He just now needs the opportunity to be able to design his own Silhouette Knights. And after this episode finishes, that's what he gets to do.
Yeah,
he gets given the opportunity. to create like a new version of the Silhouette Knights that has been the standard in this world for centuries. All kinds of stuff happens, least of all because some like bandits from like the western side of the continent decide that they're going to like take a risk and steal these units as they're being transported to a nearby fortress. All kinds of stuff goes down, but more importantly, the king continues to like Ernie's dedication to his hobby, that he keeps giving him more and more shit to do. Mm-hmm. Like more opportunities to create like new and wild ideas for Silhouette Knights, which leads us into our second highlight episode 7, New and Old. This is where because I remembered this episode primarily, but I had forgotten that like the actual funny part about it was like at the very end of the previous one of all things, and that was the basically like the proper introduction of how this episode starts, where Ernie has been tasked with showing off of his new Silhouette Knight designs in a mock battle against the country's Silhouette Knight Laboratories, the SKL, because the head of the labs themselves seems to be getting like real upset at the idea of it, of like, you know, we're a long-standing institution that has like put together the finest Silhouette Knights for this country. Why the fuck is the king giving all this attention to this new startup? This is bullshit. Which,
you know, is actually kind of fair, because it's like, yo, we've been doing this shit forever. What do you mean this kid is getting all the attention? We're doing all the work here.
Yeah. We're the ones that actually have to mass produce and like refine these things so that like everyone can use them. Yeah. Like, you know, because like as impressive as Ernie's designs are, they are more or less the equivalent of like super prototypes.
Yeah.
But that's why the king decides to arrange a mock battle between Ernie's Order of the Silver Phoenix and the Silhouette Knight Laboratories. And this is the thing from like what happens at the end of episode 6, where the labs introduced like their designs first, which they call the Caldatoa Darsh, which really, to be fair, it's more like the Telestales, but they just like refined and like simplified the design further so that it would be more suitable for like mass production. Mm-hmm. It gets the job done, but it's really more like you want to see the old man like lose his shit when Ernie comes in with a fucking centaur Silhouette Knight dragging a carriage that contains the rest of the new units he has developed.
Yeah.
Like on Ernie's side of for comparison, we have the Sendog, which is the centaur Silhouette Knight, which requires 2 people to pilot it, and that's why Adi and Kid have the job. Mm-hmm. But it's drawing like a giant robot-sized horse carriage that contains the other 3 Silhouette Knights. The new and improved version of the Guer and Earl Cumber, based on Ernie's Telestale designs, and at least for the time being, Ernie's current personal use case Silhouette Knight, which is just called the Toy Box, mm-hmm. because it does not have a set design. Yeah. It is literally the test bed for any new batshit idea he has before he incorporates it into like a more standardized design. Mm-hmm. So that's what we have. Modified Telestales using the old Caldatoa names versus 4 super prototypes. Mm-hmm. That's the battle for at least this first half of the episode.
Yeah. Because we'll get to the other half soon.
Yeah, but at least you get to see that out of everyone in the audience, the king is obviously most interested in seeing this happen, mm-hmm. And Ernie continues to sparkle with excitement as he looks at the Silhouette Night Laboratories designs and just being like, he wants to see those robots in action. Like, between Ernie and the King, King Ambrosius, it's like the best characters in this story are the ones who have the most passion.
Yeah, that just love what they're doing or just look, what's happening, that.
Yep, definitely. So the way that this whole fight goes is because of the specific, energy requirements and use cases of all their different Silhouette Knights, Ernie has to develop design a very specific plan that utilizes them best as they can, because there's more Kaldatoa Tharshes than there are of their units. So it's a case where both sides decide that they're going to designate each of them to fight another person, which means that because of how big the Sendolk is and that it's in their eyes more of a beast than a knight, that it's well, okay, we'll send 3 of our Kaldatoas at that thing, and then the remaining 3 could just fight these other units one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
But no one is prepared for the first part of Ernie's plan, in which he demonstrates what he has been working on and attached to the toy box. He has created the first jet boosters for giant robots in this fantasy world,
which works kind of for a bit. Until it turns out, this is a giant drain on mana, actually.
Yeah, he knew as much going in that that's what it was going to be, but even then he was still surprised that it's man, I really do have to just stand here and wait until I can get just enough mana back into the tank that I can go in for the fight. Because, yeah, understandably, it's just there to surprise everyone and act as a distraction and split up the rest of the Kaldatoa so everyone can kind of handle it properly. Ernie is one distraction. Adi and Kid with the Sendolg are basically luring one half of the enemy around the perimeter. It's a really complex attack plan they're going with, and it actually works out well for the most part. Mm-hmm. Though people in the audience, least of all, the one Alv in the Silhouette Knights lab is noticing very clearly that is this is a battle that is demonstrating the pros and cons of standardized mass-produced units versus hyper-specialized units that are really good at one specific thing but aren't really able to cover their other areas nearly as well as a more balanced unit. It kind of highlights as much that it would have been easy to go the AU Gundam route of the Gundams are just straight up better, no questions asked. But it at least goes, no, even the superpowered units have disadvantages that they have to overcome themselves, and that's the sort of thing where, because of what the labs have done for centuries, this is ultimately what the King was hoping for by the end, that just kind of proving, I guess, his point is that Ernie should keep designing his new ideas and giving them to the labs so that they can, refine it, in a much more standardized way for mass production. Because the fight, there are so many individual things that happen that I can't list them all off, but all you really need to know is that the fight ends in a draw. Yeah. Everyone gives it their all. As much as it seemed the advantage was initially in Ernie's favor, it's these standardized units were still able to pull through because they were piloted by knights with infinitely more experience than Ernie, Addy, Kid, Dietrich, and Edgar combined.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate that that the knights aren't pushovers and that this fight is actually, there's a lot of back and forth between this fight. And it just shows, just because they're superpowered units doesn't mean they have an advantage over, the mass-produced units, and they both have their, downsides and upsides. And it just makes it the fight a lot more exciting because of that.
And also, I guess one thing I can say that had been happening during the course of this entire fight is that Prince Emrys of all people actually shows up in this episode, basically standing on the field, not even in the bleachers, just to get the as close a look as possible at this fight, because he just got back from visiting a neighboring kingdom and was oh shit, a lot has changed here.
Yeah.
Check out those cool robots. I want to see this fight. Oh, yeah. we are going to see more of Emery's as it goes on, but not before this first half ends when the old man in charge of the Silhouette Night Laboratories, like you think he's going to show up to Ernie's face at this moment and just be even more of like a cantankerous old prick, until you realize, oh, he's just as passionate and excited about robots as Ernie is. Then he starts asking questions like, yo, how did you make that robot go super fast? And what about that robot with like the horse legs? How does its locomotion even work? And like, oh, like as soon as you see not just this old man like beaming sparkles all around him, but Ernie as well, like sparkles fill the whole screen as these two nerds are super excited to share like like their tricks and like and their solutions for how they came up with this stuff that and the like with perfect comedic timing, everyone around Ernie is like, oh boy, here he goes again. Gotta drag his ass out of here so that we can get back to work.
Yeah, it's just too like they were setting up the guy to be an antagonist, but then it turns out, oh no, he's just as much of a nerd as Ernie. And it's just two mecha otakus meeting up and just going, yo, isn't this shit tight? Holy shit.
Oh, it's so awesome. And it's like with that kind of bonding, it's no wonder that the Order of the Phoenix and the Night Laboratories are able to, be totally fine with like the new working arrangement. Silver Phoenix comes up with all the new crazy concepts. The labs refine them and make them more standardized for the rest of the Night Runners to use. Everyone wins. But obviously we got to get into our second half where we establish now that despite not really being around much for like taking classes or anything, Ernie, Kid, Adi, and like one of the other dwarves who's also on the mechanics team, Baston, they finally graduate from junior high with Adi assuming that it's like, clearly they're trying to push us out because like we started to become way too important for this school and like not really fit in with like the rest of the student body. So like that's kind of it's funny, but I mean whatever. It kind of ties back into how it's like, this anime clearly knows what it wants to focus on, and a lot of the school related shit is definitely low on that list. So it's like not surprising that like, well even then I can't remember if like there was still more of like the academy stuff even after the initial few chapters. But like the point remains the same, is that like that part is not as interesting compared to all the stuff to do with the actual robot fights or the workshop R&D moments.
Yeah, it just got me thinking that if this was a 24, like as nice as it would be for this to be like a 24 episode anime, it also got me thinking that, oh, what if most of those anime are about school stuff? And I'm like, maybe it's fine that we cut all the school stuff out. I don't think we need that actually.
Yeah. Oh God, that actually made me realize that would be the actual worst case, where like if it was longer and it would no longer be a case of them just like showing like those school segments of like Ernie's childhood in full. They would probably try to like add even more as filler, possibly. I think that would be the more terrifying thought.
Yeah, and I'm glad we got this more truncated version where we're just at the meat of things, I guess is how I'll put it.
So as things go on, now to the Order of the Silver Phoenix, because its members have graduated and are now focusing on like this like this Silhouette Night building stuff full time, they get like their workshop built moved over to an actual fort instead of being like in just some corner on the school grounds. Ernie gets a request to like have an audience with the king, or at least I guess former king almost at this point. But this was something I did not notice until rewatching these episodes again for this podcast. But kind of like during the part where the show's giving the narration of what's happened and that Ernie is being summoned, is that you get a scene of like the door opening to Ernie's office, and like there is a blueprint that he is like analyzing and kind of like working on that is actually the diagram like of the front of his dream robot design, the Ikaruga. Like it's not appearing in this episode, but it surprised me to realize that it's like, oh wait, there was actually another hint prior that like this is actually what he is working towards.
Yeah, like they were showing it to us like earlier than we thought.
So now we're in the crux of the second half of the show. The king, as we have known him, King Ambrosius, is stepping down from the throne so that his son, Leo Thomas, can lead the country. I just gotta say up front, like, the names of, like, these, of, like, the grandfather, the father, and, like, the son, Ambrosius, Leo Thomas, Emery's, is like they really landed on some good names for showing that, like, deep down, like, all of these, this family line of kings are designed to just be to embody, like, the spirit of, like, lions. They are meant to have like if you're part of this royal bloodline, I'm going to make sure that your name is the chattest fucking name ever.
Yeah.
So with the king stepping down, one thing that he asks Ernie to do is to design a personal silhouette knight for him. The king always inherits one whenever they get to the throne, but Ambrosius is like, just for fun, in my old age, I used to have, like, my own personal silhouette knight around. It's like someone asking for, like, I guess maybe, like, close equivalent would be, like, asking for, like, a very, like, specific kind of, like, custom car, I guess they would want. Yeah. Closest thing in this case. And so with that idea is that it quickly escalates where it no longer becomes just Ambrosius wanting his own silhouette knight. Emery's is also here in the conversation that he goes, hang on, if you're going to make one for my granddad, make a silhouette knight for me too. Well, all right then, what do you want, Prince? Okay, so he goes like, the most important thing for a silhouette knight is power. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then power. Uh-huh. And also power.
That really says a lot about that guy. Jesus Christ. Like we said, himbo. Just pure himbo, man.
Pure muscle brain himbo. We never mentioned anything about, like, the dub, because, like, this show actually did get one. But did you know that Emery's is voiced by Chris Sabat?
I had no idea. That's perfect, actually.
Yeah, the slight tangent is, like, with a lot of the later Funimation dubs, I'm always somewhat disappointed when I'm not able to hear, like, any of the obvious voice actors that are most known for their role in Dragon Ball. Like I feel like I almost feel like that a Funimation dub is missing something if I don't get to hear Chris Sabat in at least one role.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, like, those were, like, the voices of a generation.
So yes, we got two silhouette knights on order. How do you think Ernie is going to tackle this with, like, two specific clients? Well, this is where we bring in one of the primary mecha we talked about in our non-spoiler section. This is the introduction of the Gold Leo and the Jilba Taiga. And this leads to Ambrosius and Emery's deciding to have a fight for the privilege of owning the Gold Leo, with the loser getting the Jilba Taiga. Because gold's obviously better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can't fault that logic.
Yeah. It's real funny too, because it is like the other great part about this episode is not just like what happens in the first half with, like, the mock battle and kind of seeing, like, the design methodologies of Ernie's group and the labs. It's more like you getting to kind of see, like, the full conclusion, I'm going to say, of Ambrosius as a character and, like, who he really is as a person. And that is, like, for as much as he is, like, an old man, he is such a boisterous, passionate young man still in his heart. Yeah. Like, no matter how many wrinkles he gets, he's gonna be, like, real proud no matter what. And, like, that he's, like, basically an old man mirror of his grandson. That both of them point at Gold Leo in unison, being like, I want that one. Oh, hey, hold up. Whoa. Don't you think you're a little too old for that, man? So they just decide to take, like, regular telestales in a mock battle of their own to decide who gets to own the Gold Leo. Oh man, I love the constant disbelief from Adi during this entire saga, because, like, because of how much she loves Ernie, of course she's going to tag along with him at every opportunity, but like, she doesn't. I feel like she doesn't have much time to think about how much she wants to hug Ernie because he's so cute. Because she's constantly overwhelmed by how much of a muscle brain Emery's is, and that, oh God, Ambrosius actually wasn't that much different either. Yeah, you get to see even, like, a flashback to what he was like in his glory days. That is like, oh yeah, he's just being a big boisterous warrior, giving out like impassioned speeches on the front lines as he charges forward with his spear. I think like one of the one of like the advisors or members of the court basically goes on about how it's like, you know, they say that like when a king takes the throne, it changes him, and for once I'm glad the throne changed him. Except I'm like, did it though? Did it really?
I'm not sure about that.
You just never put him in a position to really test if it actually changed him or not.
Yeah.
Because this is just a crazy fucking fight where it's like Emery's like his telestale's fighting with a sword, Ambrosius is fighting with a spear because that was his go-to weapon. It's a regular like melee fight until it gets really up close and personal with a sequence of moves that I have to that I had to write down and describe because it is amazing to watch. This anime is really good with like its 3D CG for the robots in like their fight sequences, and this is one of the best because Emery's jumps off of Ambrosius' lance, like basically like running forward, planting his foot on it so that it goes into the ground before jumping up in the air. But then Ambrosius, you know, he sees what's happening, lets go of the spear, grabs his grandson and puts him into a fucking judo throw, about to toss him straight into the ground before Emery's uses like the gun, like magic gun rods on the auxiliary arms of his telestale, almost in like an OG Dragon Ball way of like other methods of using the Kamehameha, just using the blast to propel himself fucking upward to avoid impact with the ground.
Yeah.
This happens in the span of like 5 fucking seconds or something, and it's like you really need to just sit down and like look at what is happening because holy shit.
Yeah, it is sick as hell. Like as sad as we are, that's 2D animation is kind of being faded away in mecha anime. When it's done well, like it is in the show, it's great. When they like use the 3D models and do things you can't normally do in like 2D, like having lots of dynamic camera angles, creative shots for the moves, and just gives a lot of energy for the fights.
And like after this insane display of like quick thinking acrobatics with giant robots of all things, the fight ends with Emery's as the victor and getting the gold Leo for himself. But as it turns out, it doesn't bother Ambrosius that much because he could just tell, like, he had a hunch and asked Ernie to confirm, yo, the Gold Leo and Jilba Taiga, you literally made them to the exact same spec, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, why? I figured as much. I knew he wouldn't be able to live down the fact if he didn't get the gold version, so I'm fine with this silver one.
Yeah, he knew. He just knew. It's really funny.
Yeah, he's still a grandpa. He's still like, even though he had a moment to indulge in his young boisterous side again, he still knows that like he was fighting his grandson, and at the end of the day, like any grandparent, he just wants to spoil his grandkid.
Yeah. He just want to have a fun fight.
So what better way to spoil him than give him like the most powerful heavyweight fucking silhouette knight ever?
Yeah. He's a good grandpa.
And it's going to come in handy too in like the later episodes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, what great episodes. Surprisingly, they aren't the ones that have to do with like, you know, the R&D process of building the different silhouette knights, but it's more a case of like, this anime is so good that just about every episode is its own highlight.
Yeah.
Least of all because it's like we could have talked about episodes from the final arc of the anime, but like that's the part where it becomes, I feel like it hammers home the idea of being a lot more of a continuous narrative because it focuses on a conflict on the western side of the continent, like other side of the mountain range, where basically on the east, Fremavilla has always been like in an area where it's in the part of the continent where there are demon beasts and the other, you know, demi-human races, you know, the dwarves, the elves, all that sort of stuff. I think even the light novels also get into a point where like one of the volumes after the events of the anime actually gets to the idea of like, no, they actually reveal that there's like another demi-human race. I forget which, but they're like forest dwellers of sorts. But the whole idea with the western side of the continent, on the western side of the mountains, is that it's a bunch of like separate like human kingdoms, and one of them decides to go full Zeon.
Yeah, we have literally fantasy Zeon in here.
Yeah, like I was not kidding when I said that you could look at like that particular kingdom, the Zalodek's royal family, and just be like, you can more or less get like an exact analog to like which member of the Zabi family these assholes are supposed to be.
Pretty much.
You know?
Yeah.
Like there's the one woman that is also part of like the scheming, and it's like, oh yeah, of course you have to have one. You know, Casilla was a part of the 1 year war.
Yeah.
It makes sense. There's even one character who's like not part of the family, but like he's a rough, like not 35-year-old looking dude that might as well be this anime's Ramba Rawl. He's got an eye patch though.
With how much this anime loves like just giant robots and mecha, it's the least shocking thing they could do.
It really is the thing where like you get that far into the anime, like that is definitely the moment where you stop thinking as much about the idea that, oh yeah, this is an isekai, because we're now just straight up in a real robot anime plot.
Yeah, we're kind of fantasy Gundam.
Although there is one aspect that still brought it back to my mind because, okay, this gets to this this headcanon theory idea I have, because it has to do with a specific character in this arc. Do you agree with me that Horatio is a person that also got isekai'd into this universe and was an otaku of a different sort in his previous life? Because he is basically the evil Ernie.
You know what? I can see it. I can actually kind of see it. You know what I'm gonna say? I can agree with this headcanon. It feels like a plot they could pull out.
Yeah, least of all because like I do wish I could have like found room to like put him like in our primary character discussion, but considering how late into the show he shows up, it's like it wouldn't make as much sense. But it's like Horatio is more I thought about it, he is the character that gets me to think about like, you know, I actually probably would want like a season 2 of Knights and Magic, least of all because I think the last volume of the light novel straight up has him and Ernie on the cover in a scene that looks like they are bickering over mechanical designs, and my hope is that it's supposed to imply that at some point in the light novel, late into that story, that the two of them actually physically meet. Because I want to know what the fuck happens when you put those two weirdos in the same room.
Oh,
because you get like an implication of what that might be when it's like, it's more like a conversation, an argument between like their very wills, like kind of near the end. Because Ernie's whole idea is that he loves robots and he wants robots to be at the center of technological progress in this universe. Horatio, on the other hand, is more like, fuck that. All I want to do is make the most powerful goddamn weapons and flying airships. Who cares about aesthetics? Weapons need to be practical and nothing else.
Yeah. He's the perfect foil for Ernie. So how would those two deal with each other? Like, if they were working together, I guess maybe we'll know if they make a season 2. Please make a season 2.
That, or however many more months it takes for like those last few volumes to get like English translations, and then I can decide from there. It's like, all right, am I gonna have to fucking read all of this shit now, or at least read from the volumes after the war against Zalodek?
Yeah,
because at least that would save on like 50% of the reading time, I suppose. You know?
Yeah.
Alternatively, if no anime studio wants to spring for this, then at least like give like a mangaka the opportunity to basically like do like a sequel series that covers the remaining light novel volumes. That would be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to get Isekai Yusha G Shine, but whatever. It's like just get that artist more things to do, because this is one thing like just to tie this back to one of our earliest fucking episodes when we did our overview of the Brave series. You know, like I was mentioning about all the different examples of how the Brave series has like left an indelible impact on like on people and creators in Japan. Is that like the series of like sketches and ideas on the Twitter account of a manga artist that was basically the idea of, what if there was a Brave series where the Brave robot got summoned to another world? That artist was the guy that made the Knights and Magic manga.
Which I remember you telling me that, and I wish I would read that. That's still, if a Brave series has got isekai, I'd be like, hell yes.
Like all those little doodles and like ideas and like kind of like random thoughts he came up with about how it would work was like, that is so good. I would totally read that or watch an anime or maybe not. I don't know. Again, the Brave series is old enough where it's like, I don't know if I could handle like, if the Brave series were brought back, I don't know if I could handle the idea of seeing it with like 3D CG after it's been like in my mind for so long as like a defining product of anime in the 90s.
Yeah, I can see that.
Point is, fantasy and robots, it's a fun mix when it happens.
Good combination.
And Knights and Magic is still one of the more surprisingly enjoyable examples of that. I think at the end of the day, like, I still love Escaflowne the most out of like all these attempts, but it's like Knights and Magic is such a fun like love letter to not just robots, but to the experience and the joy of what it is like to be a fan of giant robots.
Yeah. It is made by people who are passionate about fantasy and robots, and you can feel it in every second of this show.
No hacky isekai tropes are going to weigh it down besides the obvious dude gets run over by a truck at the beginning. But you basically forget about that a few episodes in.
Yeah, you do.
It's a fun time. It's great to have to talk about this.
It was
on the podcast.
Yeah,
Thanks a ton, Neph.
I'm glad I got to watch this.
Yeah. This was a recent watch for both of us, basically within the last year.
Yeah.
But thanks everyone at home for listening, and in a shocking swerve from everything that we usually do, tune in next time when we talk about a giant robot that was not made in Japan. Yes, we actually have like not anime to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll still dig it. All right, we'll see y'all later.
してるけ